Hello, I'm Richard Pide, and this is Conversations with Corrections. Welcome to the 2026 Legislative Review edition of our podcast. Along with Executive Director Jared Garcia today, we have our Legislative Affairs Director Carolina Herron and Jeff Modishaw, who's Director of Administrative Operations and Quality. So just to let you know, this past legislative session went really, really well for corrections. We started out with looking at a 5% cut to our budget, which would have been about $25 million or so, Jeff?
That's correct.
Is that right?
Yeah.
And we ended up with a great session and some good legislation to back up some of our programs. So let me ask each of you before we get too much further, what letter grade, how would you say corrections did? What letter grade would you give corrections and how it did in the legislature?
I give us an A. We had a great session.
I think we had a great session too. Carolina?
Well, after that A, I was thinking around A minus, B plus.
Okay.
But we really did really well.
You're integrally tied to it, so you're very, very selective about giving an A plus, so we can understand that. Jeff, what do you say?
I actually was thinking A minus for outcomes and B plus because there's some things we could do better next time. So that's where I was sitting.
And that gives us something to shoot for. So, Director Garcia, let me just ask you, how would you sum up the session? Like, what's your feeling looking in the rearview mirror of it? When all the hard work that you put into it and what we got out of it.
Well, I mean, my first feeling is I didn't know I was the optimist of the three of us, so I think that's funny. But no, I the reason I feel like it was such a successful session is because, again, we did start with the reality that we may have to make some significant cuts, and those were absolutely on the table. And I feel like our team was able to articulate why those cuts not only shouldn't happen, but what the damages would be if they did happen. And so that's a piece of it. I think also what we're learning is our department is highly trusted, not only by the legislature, but by the governor's office and by other stakeholders. And that doesn't just happen without some work that's being put in by many different people. So we're lucky to have Carolina that was involved from the legislative standpoint, interacting and building relationships and maintaining that. Jeff really taking a deep dive into our budget and our needs as an organization. The entire executive team and administrative team worked their tails off throughout the session. And really, it's a testament to our entire staff because they are elevating their standards. We are representing ourselves as a professional law enforcement organization. We are having an impact on public safety overall, and that really, really goes a long way. So just the ability to maintain our budget was a success. We actually were asked to take on more responsibilities related to public safety, which, again, speaks volumes for the direction of our department. And then while Carolina may not be as optimistic as me, there were many bills that were on the table that we actually had to go advocate against.
We were able to, yes.
And those bills would have been harmful not only for the Department of Corrections and the population that we supervise, but also some of those bills would have harmed our ability as a law enforcement community to keep our community safe. And so that's why I give us an A. Certainly I agree with Jeff as well that there's always work that can be done. That is how I think naturally is that there's ways that we can improve. But I couldn't be happier about the way the session ended, and I couldn't be prouder of the organization.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
Yeah, and Carolina, she gave it an A minus, but she's very bullish for the department. So she's very supportive of what happened. So
well, I was thinking A minus along the lines of we did extremely well. So not to just repeat what Executive Director Garcia said, but in terms of looking ahead, different things we can continue to improve and work on. But for this session, we really did, looking at the outcome of what it could have been, we did exceptionally well.
Yeah, because initially, 5% for corrections is what, $25 million,
yeah.
Jeff?
In December, over the holiday break, we got the request for 5% cuts, and that was almost $25 million. And those were ongoing cuts. So if you've heard me talk about ongoing versus one-time, ongoing money is worth more than one-time money, and that would have been hugely detrimental.
So in the end, we did suffer some kind of cut. How did that interface with
$6 million of one-time money.
Okay.
So we went from $25 million ongoing to $6 million one time. And what's even interesting about that $6 million is it was in a fund that was building up that we would have had access to in July. So we never actually had the money. So they took that money away one time, but the fund will start to build up again starting in July 1. And so it really was a small hit in the comparison to what it really could have been.
Sounds like maybe a little bit of a legislative or budgetary horse trading there.
Exactly.
Is what happened. Mm-hmm. So What about some of the big ticket items? We have money now to open one of our unopened portions of the prison in Salt Lake, and then also we've established a trust fund. How would you describe the importance of those items, Jeff?
Well, one of the big issues we had with all the inflationary pressures happening, especially around utilities and stuff, us moving from Draper out to Salt Lake City, we moved from our own water shares, our own wells, to the city water, Salt Lake City water, and then with all the inflation, we were just getting killed on utilities. We spend over $1 million just on sewer alone out there, and so we were underfunded. Our budget just couldn't keep up. And so we had to hold Bear 3 closed and not hire for those officers just so we had enough money to cover the utilities. So it was a real case of robbing Peter to pay Paul, right? Well, the legislature understood the need. They funded it. That was $3.5 million ongoing. And so now we're able to open Bear 3. We're able to release those pins to be hired. It's a great day for us. We need the space.
And then through House Bill 20, we're now able to plan for the future, right, Carolyn?
Absolutely. And to go back a little bit on Bear 3, the support we received on that and the understanding that the legislators had of the importance of having us be able to open that facility has been huge. And in terms of the expansion, we can talk a little bit more about that. But House Bill 20, the money that we're getting to eventually start building and expanding CUCF, that's going to be a massive undertaking for us. And it's not something that's going to happen overnight. But obviously, again, the legislature understood the situation we were in, the needs we're having, and the reason as to the why we had to have that immediately, meaning right now. Those monies, that funding is going to be coming to us, and we can start the process to get that going and to get CUCF up to the point where we can start utilizing that bed space and having that expansion.
And that's the prison in Gunnison, which we've already sort of done some pre-planning and groundwork laying. So we've done some smart preparing there as well. So Executive Director Garcia, let me ask you about some of the other policy wins that we have. I have kind of a list. I don't expect you to remember this on your own because there's a lot. We have Senate Bill 93, which basically kind of allows us to activate a little bit more flexibility when it comes to our tiered housing program. Could you describe that? Can you? Is it possible for you to sum that up?
No.
We could talk about this for a half hour.
Absolutely. First of all, we would want to recognize Senator Owens for continuing to be a champion for the Utah Department of Corrections. He ran this bill. He typically runs legislation for this department we call them cleanup bills, but just to give us the flexibility to be more effective in our operation. And I think you nailed it. This just gives us a little bit of flexibility where the statute no longer says we shall conduct direct supervision. It still is a concept and a principle that we want to deploy, but it gives us the flexibility to do that where it is appropriate and also not use it where it isn't appropriate. So that was a big win. The other part of the bill is that eliminates or effectively makes it illegal to operate a drone near our correctional facilities, which is big because we know that as technology advances, criminal organizations continue to get creative and they try to find ways to deliver contraband, which is detrimental to people's ability to rehabilitate. It also creates a risk to our staff and the inmates that we supervise. So we're just appreciative of that. That is a big win for us. I also, though, I don't want to undersell the importance of the budget because we did have a structural budget deficit that we talked about in depth for over a year, and the fact that we're now able to operate in a way that we would like to is really monumental. Also, the fact that we received the money, the $5 million to keep the modernization of OTRAC moving forward, that is a huge, huge victory for us because we are literally operating corrections on an Atari right now, and that needs to change, and it's going to change. It's going to change significantly this year because of that funding. So, again, we didn't have a ton of bills that we needed to push through this year. I was more concerned about some of the bills that were going to pass. I was really concerned, frankly, about the use of unmarked vehicles in our communities. I thought that was going to be extremely detrimental to public safety, and it required all law enforcement agencies to come to the table and articulate why that was bad for public safety. But but
It
certainly
put a tremendous burden on us as a department.
yes.
Yeah.
But certainly Senate Bill 93 is a big win for us, and it helps us to be flexible in order to manage this population effectively.
And then a couple of the other things we were talking about earlier, the postpartum recovery bill.
House
that
Bill
passes.
122. And then just to kind of touch on what Executive Director touched on, I wanted to kind of bring up the fact that we also had a House Bill, a joint resolution done with specifically on drones and the way those operate over prison facilities. And so that's going to help us because that passing between the Senate and the House, that'll give us a good push on the federal level. And so that's one of the things that as a state and as a department, we can help in making those changes. And so that was huge to have that support and to have that understanding from the legislature that we do see those issues, we have those problems. And not only us as a department in Utah, but it's something that's being seen all over the nation. And so that will help us to be able to work with our federal partners and to be able to hopefully push that further, not only for our state, but other states. And so that was a big one. We also had House Bill 495, which is the capital felony case, the differences there. And that a lot of that got pushed due to the Ralph Menzies situation. And so that's one that the legislature really wanted to see happen.
That's the one that limits the number of times that
Yes.
that a person on death row can appeal.
Yes, and the time, because they were really concerned that that took about 39 years in that case specifically.
Yeah, they're dying of natural causes
Right.
by the time that.
And so there was some concern there, especially on the victim end, right? I mean, that's concerning that victims have to wait that long. And so that was a big bill. And then one that Executive Director Garcia really loves is House Bill 384, which is going to change his title. And so we need to talk about that one.
Yeah, that's a department. Soon we're going to be calling you commissioner, but it's not just you. It's going to be other areas of the state, Department of Public Safety, others. Who else does that affect besides corrections?
It affects every cabinet member, governor's cabinet member.
Okay.
All of our titles will change to commissioner. And so I'm glad you brought that up because we don't want the perception out there that I just thought my title should be different or the deputies. That's not the
Put a
case.
little extra jewel in your crown.
Yeah, like
It's the
I
whole
honestly
state, the whole
don't
state.
care what people call me, but
Yeah.
I think it is good for some of the other cabinet members specifically to have a better defined title when they show up to events or national functions. It just shows that they are a leader and they're in the governor's cabinet, and it just makes it easier to identify.
That's consistency.
Yeah.
It
Creates
makes
a little
everybody even.
consistency.
Someone's not an executive director versus an executive administrator. People are confused about who's leading the organization, perhaps.
And so if folks start seeing us being referred to as the commission office, that's why that will happen.
Sure.
The little change between being called the executive office to commission office or
commissioner's
something
office,
like that.
Tying a bow
Commissioner's
around
office.
that one.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the Arch project too, because that's a pretty major, heavy lift for us and something that's new. Carolina, could you kind of give us a synopsis of what that means? That's going to kind of interface
I'll
with.
let Executive Garcia talk a little bit
Okay,
more about that.
you can talk first about it.
But basically, House Bill 110 is going to tie into that and just all the different work we're going to be doing with what we like to call the homelessness initiative that came down from the governor's office. So we'll take a big chunk of that work, and we're going to play a major part in the state on that. But
Yeah. I would just say we're very excited to support this priority item from the governor's office and from the state legislature. We all know how challenging homelessness is in not only our community, but really throughout the country. But we do believe we can do it a little bit better here in Utah. And so it is another monumental ask because I don't know any other state where where the Department of Corrections is being asked to take on such a significant role. But we received additional funding to leverage our community correction centers to treat and support high utilizers. And what we mean by that is criminogenic high utilizers, those individuals that are in our community that are being arrested 15, 25, 35 times without accountability and without the proper resources. And so Chief Nick Bricker will be taking on the role over community safety and stability. And he will work very closely with the Office of Homelessness Services, with Department of Workforce Services, other governmental agencies, as well as service providers throughout the state, and really in an effort to better assess people, identify their true need, and then connect them to resources at the right time and place. And then if at the end of the day they're still not successful, then yeah, there will be an accountability portion where they will have to serve their jail time. Our focus will be, just like we do in probation and parole and within our prisons, we want to help people to turn their lives around. At the end of the day, we do not want them in our prisons and we don't want them in jail. And we'll be able to better decipher which direction those folks need to go by just supervising them in a different way.
So it seems like it's breaking up that cycle of someone being homeless, they've got substance abuse, they're breaking the law, they get arrested, they get released, and they're homeless again, and then they've got this circle. We're kind of interrupting that with a little bit of accountability, with a lot of accountability, and maybe some programs for them. It seems like, as a nation, we're desperate to deal with these problems.
It's an issue
people on the street.
all over the country.
Did the legislature approach us and ask, can you guys up for this task, or how did this go?
Yeah, I also think it speaks volumes to the progress and updates we've done as a department, that obviously the governor's office being a priority for them, they were able to trust us with that process and to see what we could do as a department. And so when those conversations started to come around, they were able to see that due to the current leadership we have in place, that we're able to take on and work in partnership with several different agencies. And that also brings up IRIS. We're going to be able to use that a lot to our advantage when it comes to dealing with those high utilizers. And so I think that they were able to see all the work that's being done speaks volumes to what our staff has been able to accomplish and the trust, again, that they've put in us to work through that process.
I also think, and just to piggyback on what Carolina just talked about, is there's a lot of different people throughout the system that are, we believe, in the right place at the right time, meaning like Chief Brian Redd, the former executive director here, is now the chief of police in Salt Lake, in our capital city. Here in the department, many of us worked on Operation Rio Grande, so we understand what did work and maybe what couldn't work. And then as a department, we are really shining right now. We are really proving things out. We are showing success because we have amazing people that work here. We are leveraging technology better than most departments of correction. And yeah, you're right, the IRIS Center is a big part of that. But these types of things wouldn't be asked of us if people didn't believe that we were going to be successful. And I know that we have the right team, the right people in place to be successful, and I'm really excited to see the Utah Department of Corrections shine on this initiative.
Okay.
Expectations are high, but we can meet it.
Yeah.
Rich, another thing that might be interesting for staff to know is part of the money that came with that, over $8 million, will be reinvested into 4 of our centers. Absolutely. So over the next little while, you should expect to see some updates to the centers, which I think is great too. We should have the right places for these people to go, for our staff, for our customers, for all those people.
That's good.
That's a huge piece.
Is there anything, any other wrap-up items for the legislature that I didn't mention that you think are important?
Not that I can think of. We can get really specific, but I just like to say that I'm very appreciative of the current communications department as well, because right now you can go on UDC Connect and you can see all the different things that we worked on during the legislature. Something that maybe is of interest, we were able to get Representative Lee to do a citation for us, and that was presented on the House floor, which is a big deal. And I think that also shows Speaker Schultz is a big supporter of our department. And with that citation, it just recognizes, again, all the work that our officers, that our staff, that everyone together is doing to make UDC shine.
And I think the citation on the floor of the House of Representatives kind of shows, again, kind of backs up what we were saying earlier.
Yeah.
That the confidence in the department, and it was echoed by both the governor and the Senate.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was a huge deal, not only for the Department of Corrections to be recognized, but we had our UDC Day on the Hill. We called it Cell Day. Carolina took the lead on it, and it was handled a little bit differently than we've handled in the past. But it was amazing to see multiple legislators come through, speak with our leadership team, talk about the trust that we've earned and over time, and that we've gained from them, and that the fact that they have our back and that they're going to continue to support us. It's just huge. And then, we have to continue to recognize that we work for a governor, lieutenant governor, legislature that support us, absolutely supports our governor. Everything that we asked for in our budget, he placed into his budget, which goes. Not everything in the governor's budget passes, but it goes certainly a long way. And I just feel so supported by them as our leaders, and we can't lose that trust. And the way that we continue to gain that trust is by being professional, making the right decisions for the right reasons, treating people with compassion and caring about what we do. I always throw down challenges, you know that, and I'm going to continue to challenge our staff to not just think about what you are today, but to think about what we can be and what as an agency and what you can be as an individual. And I actually had a long talk with DPO the other day about some things that are going well and maybe some things that we want to see, areas we want to see improved. And we always hear the term like, why, let's not reinvent the wheel. Mm-hmm. But I actually challenge them to reinvent the wheel. And I'm challenging our department to reinvent the wheel because I believe truly, wholeheartedly, I say this all the time, we are well on our way to being the best correctional agency in the country. But if we truly want to achieve that, we need to ask ourselves, can the wheel be more effective? Can it be wider? Can it have, the wheel didn't start with rubber on it, right? At a certain point, it improved.
Can we make?
So I want us to reinvent the wheel, improve the wheel, and continue to strive for greatness. And I'm very, very confident we're going to reach that level. Yeah.
So moving forward, what do we look for next, Jeff?
Well, maybe I'll just add a couple more things and then answer that question if that's okay.
Sure.
A lot of the stuff that came from the governor, that came from the legislature, wasn't just lip service. You know, they always say, put your money where your mouth is. Well, last year we spent over $6 million on our OTRAC modernization. This year they gave us $5 million more. Close to $2 million for other technology, updates, softwares, things that we need to use. So this is all in addition to all that other stuff. The money that came for the centers.
Body cameras.
Some
our
body
training,
cams.
Our training
and then
funding.
Even some of the money that was taken away from us was reinvested right back into our prison expansion fund. So the $125 million that's sitting in there is actually $126.5 million.
Already.
So what looked like we were getting another $1.5 million cut, actually they just took it from one place and dropped it right in. So it's going to benefit us as well. So that's exciting stuff. Now looking forward to the future. We've been chipping away at our budget deficit. We've had some success there, as we've talked about. We got a little bit more to go. I'd love to see a little bit more money in our training budget, as Carolina said, kind of get us up so that we have the best, right? Not only are we the best, but we have the best. I think we need to continue to produce results, right? That adds to our credibility on the Hill. They're starting to come to us and ask our opinion instead of us trying to force it on them. That's a huge shift. I've worked for a lot of different agencies in state government over the last 20 years, including the governor's office. I have never seen a situation where we had so many friendlies, so many advocates in the legislative side. If you had one or two people that could help you out, that could sponsor a bill to, clean up language
That was a big deal.
Yeah, put some stuff out there, and we have
Several.
It's amazing
too.
It
And
is. It really
it
is. We have a lot of champions.
That's a big deal.
So I think what we need to do is we need to recognize that that's an important thing. We need to recognize we have it, but then also keep doing the work, as Jared said, so that we maintain it, right? So that we keep that credibility. Now they've given us the money. Now it shifts from us asking for it to us being able to produce. If we produce and they can trust us next year when we ask for money, because they have to make a decision every year. When I was in the governor's office, roughly we would get about $5 in asks for every dollar that could be allocated. So when we're getting money, that means $4 other dollars of asks is getting denied, right? So we have to be the trusted ones. We have to bring the value for their investment. So that's what I would say kind of the next thing is. We keep going on this path we're on, chip away a little bit more.
Can I sell your thunder, Rich? Because I just want to be Rich Pyatt for 1 second.
Go ahead.
But Jeff, would you be willing to talk about? I imagine there's at least 2 or 3 employees that are wondering about, pay for performance money and the COLA and those types of things.
Yeah,
Can you
sure.
touch on where we landed there?
So the good news right out of the gate is 2.5% COLA. So cost of living adjustment for everybody across the board. That's exciting. It moves the pay plan up. It moves everybody up. So that's fantastic. That'll go into effect at the beginning of the fiscal year. They also allocated some more pay for performance money. It's one time again. So the last couple of years it's been one time. As part of our fiscal strategy, we've really been trying to guard against lean times, especially for our staff. Maybe that's a way to say it. And so we've carried forward $3.3 million from last year's pay for performance. That's some one-time money. Internal discussions, we want to add more money to that. So this year we won't be moving the pay plan, but we're really going to try our best to do some really good bonuses for everybody. And we'd like to do bonuses in a way that maybe has some long-term value, right? So instead of just a one-time bonus that doesn't affect your kind of what's counted for your retirement, we give out bonuses in a way that's counted towards your retirement, which means we give you your bonus and then we have to make a payment to URS too. So that if you're getting a pension or some other thing like that, or if it goes into your 401k. And so for us, when we give out, say if we were to give out $4 million, it's really going to cost us about $7 million. But hopefully what that means is even after you leave UDC and you retire and you get to enjoy the fruits of your labor, it benefits you a little bit more. And so we're excited about that. We'll be able to do that again this year, and we hope to be giving out more than anybody else.
That's
again.
excellent. Kind of a double whammy there.
Yes.
Okay. As we wrap up, any final words?
Yeah.
Director Garcia?
I think two things. I just want to double down on the comments that both Jeff and Carolina made. That when you receive money and we receive new responsibility, we have an obligation to deliver. So I'm going to challenge our staff to deliver. I know that we will, but we do not want to lose our credibility. We do not want to lose our momentum. So continue to work hard, do the right things, be innovative, and look for opportunities for us to be successful collectively. And then I think the other thing for staff to understand and realize is the session just ended, but next year's session just started for us. And so
the interim starts in May.
So we will be getting out on our listening tour and listening to staff and talking about the areas where we improved from last year's listening tour, and hope that they can see some differences and that they see we're going to listen to them. But as we think ahead, some of our priorities, it'll continue to be compensation. We want to retain our employees, and we know that is a big deal to them. So just know we're going to continue to fight for that next year. Advocate for it. Fight is an aggressive word. We're going to advocate for it.
We have to soften a little bit.
And we do need to listen to our staff. So we are looking for ways to be more efficient and effective as an agency. And once we can demonstrate that, it's easier for us to go back and really understand our true need when it comes to FTEs, and that's on the top of our list next year. PINs, whatever you want to call them, we want to be able to go back and say that this is where we need additional employees to help us to accomplish our mission. So outside of that, I'm just so grateful for these two. I'm so grateful for our team, and I'm grateful for every employee here at the Utah Department of Corrections. They truly make us excellent, and we are on such a great trajectory. Let's keep the momentum going.
So as we reflect on this, obviously the great work of the legislature is due to all the UDC employees, but also, quite frankly, it's due to the hard work of each one of you as well. Extraordinary work, a lot of hard work, a lot of long hours up at the legislature. I know it's not easy. Those marble floors don't get any softer the more you walk around on them. I know they don't. And really, truly, really excellent work up there. Well, thank you for joining us for this legislative wrap-up edition, year 2026. Thank you for your support, and thanks for everything else that you do. And as always, we close by saying we're all working together, transforming lives and protecting communities. See you next time.
This has been Conversations with Corrections from the Utah Department of Corrections. These podcasts are on our website at corrections.utah.gov or on the UDC YouTube page. Suggestions for a future topic can be sent to corrections@utah.gov. Thank you for joining us.